welcome to the We Talk Chelsea podcast. Three friends that play Sunday League football, united by love of Chelsea Football Club. And as you can see the ticker tape at the bottom there, breaking news, Levi Colwill has finally signed an extension to his contract that runs until 2029. I think we should probably leave with that. That was only really announced, Fabrizio announced that 35-ish minutes or so ago, and it's perfectly timed for a podcast. We are live on YouTube and on TKS TV. Chaps, how are we feeling about Levi Colwill finally being pinned down to a long-term deal, basically telling Brighton to do one?
I'll go for Tim. You go. Go on.
Okay. Well, I think it's fantastic news. I think most Chelsea fans will be happy to actually see that he's committed to the club now long term. We've needed a left-footed centre-back, especially after Badiashile's injury. It made it a bit more urgent. The fact that, we needed a replacement at the end of the day. And he's come in at the perfect time where, he's really excelled at Brighton last season, looked like one of their standout players. And, he's a homegrown player at the end of the day. So we need to keep as many of them as we can right now. It looks like most of the old Cobham players have gone out. He's one of the few that's remained, and he's looking to get into the England team. As we've seen, he won the Euro under 21s. He was one of the key players for England. So, yeah, it's a great signing, I think, for us for the long term.
And Charlie, he's such a calm and composed player on the ball. You watched him play for England, you watched him play for ourselves and for Brighton. Like he's completely comfortable taking the ball under pressure and making that cut and pass forwards and making those forward passes. He kind of reminds me a little bit potentially with a little bit more of a dynamic kind of Thiago Silva. Obviously, Silva, is 39 years old in September time. It's probably going to be his last season with the club, but he's kind of looking like the long-term successor to Thiago Silva. Does it kind of make you pleased to see that finally we're getting a long-term future sorted out for, a Cobham graduate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next season for these centre backs, it's so important to use and to lean on Thiago Silva. We're going to have him for one more year. I think that guy has so much knowledge, so much ability of the game and professionalism. And for Levi Colwill to sign that up, and if he can lean on Thiago Silva for 1 year, I think he'll learn it. I mean, I was looking at, I think I was sending you some stuff this week about, John Terry when he was leaning on Marcel Desailly as an example, Frank Leboeuf, these sort of players. You've got to lean on the experienced players, and we've got Thiago Silva for 1 year. We need to learn whatever we can from him, and I think this is an absolutely excellent addition to the squad. What do you reckon, Tom?
I think I have to agree. Like anything I say is merely just going to echo what both of you have said. Don't get me wrong. There was probably times where I probably put on a bit of a front, and I thought, oh yeah, he's going to sign. It's not going to be an issue. But there's always that outside chance, and I think we've been Chelsea fans for 20 plus years, like 25 plus years. We've seen the clubs don't think these players are going to go, and then eventually they do leave, and it was always in the back of my mind that it could potentially happen. But I'm actually really delighted that Levi Colwill signed to further strengthen our centre back position. We're very, very blessed, and some might say overstocked in that centre back area position now. So it'll be interesting to see how Pochettino deals with this going forward, especially with the signing of Axel Disasi coming through as well. Chaps, I mean, Levi Colwill coming through, Axel Disasi coming through. It's like I said, are we oversubscribed in that area? Do we think somebody needs to go to make room? Do we send somebody on loan? Do we think somebody like Trevoh Chalobah might benefit from a loan away for a season and just until Silva retires before he has that opportunity again? What would you say? Is it stick or twist for Trevoh Chalobah, or do we keep him as a kind of an understudy for James and for Gusto should they get injured? I say should they get injured. This is Reece James we're talking about. Anyway, what do you reckon, Tim?
I think it's a bit harsh on Trevoh Chalobah. I think he's done the long game. He's been out on loan. You know, he's played for this club for many years, and he was captain the other day, and then all of a sudden now he's not going to be in the team whatsoever. It seems a bit strange, but at the same time, it is football, it's business. At the very top, it is ruthless. Not everyone gets what they want, and if this is the direction we want to go in, he probably does miss out. It's a shame. Like I say, he has tried his very best. He is a Cobham graduate, but if the club looking to improve on that position, then it is what it is at the end of the day. You just move on and sort of improve on that. But personally, would I like to see him stay? Of course, but at the same time, we do have adequate cover there, so I could understand his reasoning of going. Because if you think about it, we still have the new centre back we just signed. We have Thiago Silva for this season. We have Fofana to come back. We have Colwill. We have Badiashile. We have
Yeah.
we have James. So there's two at least there for every position, and he might be thinking himself, I want to start now. He's what, 24, 25?
24. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's in the later stages of his adolescence in his football career, let's say.
Yeah, so this is the time a footballer really thinks I need to establish myself into a starting 11. I can't be a squad player for the rest of my life. We've seen what's happened. The likes of Loftus-Cheek maybe not getting enough game time, just being a bench player purely for the love of Chelsea. But he needs to think about his own career and make his name, Trevoh Chalobah, instead of just being another Chelsea player who just dwindled away, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, do you think there's potential that he could be retained on the basis of, let's just look at injuries here. Badiashile's picked up he's got a knock. He's got an ongoing issue that's playing a factor in his playing time, where he's not featured at all in pre-season. Thiago Silva, 39 years old, kind of has to manage his game time a lot more this season, especially. We want to make the most of Thiago Silva and his experience in a very inexperienced Chelsea side. But then we also have, long-term out Wesley Fofana. It's very unlikely he's going to be back to full fitness by this season at all. Could you see a benefit to maybe retaining Chalobah, even as the case of him knowing that he's only going to get a few games per season?
Yeah, but it depends what system we choose, and by all accounts, we're going to be playing two at the back. Yeah, we're playing two in the centre back. I've always said we need to be very careful this season how we use Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva, it's his last season. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, and basically his job this season, in my opinion, is to be leaned on. He's got to be leaned on by these young centre backs. Yeah, they're all young. Fofana, Badiashile, Chalobah, all these guys, they're all young. They're all under 25. They need to lean on Thiago Silva, learn what they can off him. He needs to play in the big games, a little bit like Vincent Kompany, if you remember. Yeah. Vincent Kompany sort of had that kind of role. Yeah. But I think Thiago Silva is a fantastic professional, absolutely fantastic professional. But I think it's probably going to be his last season. Okay. And I think this. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Wesley Fofana is the answer. I think he's very injury prone. I think Badiashile, Colwill. Those are the two that long term are going to be the rock of that centre back. The JT and the
Gary
Cahill, whatever you want to call it. The rock on that back four.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. And I think Thiago Silva this season. I think if Pochettino's clever, he will use him sparingly. That's got to be done. He has to be used sparingly. 20 games out of the 40. Let the young players lean on him. Yeah, and learn from him, because he is probably one of the best centre backs in the last decade, I would say.
Yeah.
And while we've got him here, let's use him as we can. He's not going to play every game next season. We leaned on him way too much last season, way too much. Okay, next season, let's lean on him. Let's let the young lads learn from him, and let's go from there.
Yeah, and I really think the reason we lent on him so much last season is I think his performances didn't dip all season. And we look at all the players that we had at this last season, their form was so patchy, and let's face it, some of them didn't even get out of second gear. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's why we lent a lot on him, because it could have been, let's face it, potentially a hell of a lot worse. But that's last season, and this is this season. I think the thing that we need to talk about here now is the next thing was breaking here was it looks like now that Chelsea may be back in for Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus. Currently, talks are being in negotiations between Juventus and Chelsea, where Lukaku might be going to Juventus with an exchange for Vlahovic. We're going to pay a bit of money on top of that as well, because Lukaku is such a massive drain on resources that we're willing to pay a lot of money to get rid of him. It's looking like that Chelsea value Lukaku at about 45 million euros. Vlahovic is being valued by Juventus at 75. So they're kind of thinking, okay, well, Lukaku plus 30 million. Tem, do you take it? Do we need Vlahovic? We've had such sterling, we've had such great performances from Nicolas Jackson, a player that we none of us have really heard of before signing him for 35 million. Do we need him, or do we just feel like we just want to bolster the attack going into the next season?
Yeah, this is a question I was sort of asking myself, and I'm not quite sure. I still think, from a perspective of where we want to finish in the table, I don't know if we have enough goals as a team, if you get what I mean. I feel
Do you
like
mean do you mean collectively around like different players, or do you mean just in general?
Yeah, collectively around as players. I don't know if we've got enough. Say like if Nicolas Jackson, God forbid, is out for 3-4 games or whatever, have we got it in us to score goals? I know we've got Nkunku, but I've not been quite enamored to see him as a centre forward. I still think we create a lot more chances through Nicolas Jackson. And my only point is, like, obviously he's going to have growing pains to the Premier League. So is it better to have maybe two or three different options, really? I'm not sure Broja is going to do it for us as well, because he's had a bad injury. So I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, we should get back in the top 4 this season, or top 5 to get Champions League football. I still think it's a lot to ask for this team. I
don't think so. I honestly don't think so. And I was thinking about this today, and I was literally driving around. And I was thinking, God, I've got to do this podcast this evening, right? And I knew that you guys were going to ask me this. So what should we do? And I know that you always call me Mr. Negative. You always call me Mr. Negative. I'm going to tell you now, right? We beat Fulham 2-0 yesterday. Okay, Fulham beat us once away. Okay, and at home we didn't break them down, and we drew. Yeah. Brighton, we lost 4-1 away, and at home, I think we lost. I'm pretty sure
1-0 or 2-0. I think.
Okay. So
is that when João Felix got sent off?
What's that? Sorry.
Was it that the game that João Felix got sent off?
That was the Fulham game. Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. No, keep going. Sorry, you're thinking about in the car.
So the point I'm trying to make is that even Newcastle, we did a 1-1 draw with them, didn't we? Yeah. 2 days ago. Yeah, and that's a team that have qualified for the Champions League. Yeah. These are teams that we were battling against last season. I don't know why, but I've got this feeling that we aren't doing very well. I think we are doing well, and we should capitalize on that. We should be happy about that and stop being negative about everything, and just this is good. Everything's good.
Oh, that's pride comes before the fall.
Can I counter that point?
Yeah, I mean, by all means, this is
well, it's really sort of a false fallacy, because how do you know we're doing good? It is pre-season in the sense of we're playing 2-11s. The other teams are playing 2-11s. When it comes to Premier League match day, everything's different. You know what I mean? Teams take those sort of games a lot more seriously. And second of all, like I say, we are a growing team, so there are going to be growing pains. Like you say, though, we should look at that in a positive light. From the results we've got so far, we can only build upon that. But like I say, I want to see what makes us sort of lose. I want to see the bad times to assess of how far we can actually go, because I'm yet to see what are the real deficiencies of this team. I've mentioned the midfield and experience, and you need experience to get you in the top four, and that's something we definitely need to sort out. So maybe that's why I'm leaning towards seventh or eighth, because we look a real inexperienced team, especially just managing through games.
I
Yeah, but
never
you can
thought I'd
say
say this. I
go on.
never thought I'd say this, but I agree with Charlie.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
positive. I don't understand this.
I
Like
actually,
we
I actually
this
think we're
is
going to get top five. I didn't
I
think
do.
it.
I really do.
I didn't think it about 3 weeks ago. I think we could get top five. When you look at the mitigating factors around this, we don't have Europe, so we're not going to have tired legs. We can 100% focus on the league and focus on the cup runs. Yes, we are, like you said, Temba, you make an exceptionally valid point. There is not a lot of experience in midfield, and that does need to be rectified sooner rather than later, because that could be our area where we come unstuck against, more experienced midfields like the Man United midfields, like Casemiro's, Ericsson's, that type of midfield. Man City, we could come unstuck there. But looking at what I've seen so far this season, in this pre-season, yes, it does have the caveat of being pre-season. Teams are still finding their way. But I watched the first half an hour of the Chelsea Fulham game. Full disclosure, I didn't watch the whole game, but it looked vastly different to last season. It looked like players actually wanted to play football. Players wanted to win the ball back. Players were retaining the ball exceptionally well, and they were trying to make those forward passes. They were trying to make the runs into the channels to get the ball forward. It's an incredibly positive time to be watching. I was dreading the Liverpool game based on the basis of the last game of the season. But now I'm actually really looking forward to it, and I think, well, why can't we win it? Why can't we?
People forget, right, how dumpy it was at the end of last season. Can you remember that Man United game that I fucking ended up going to, right? So we ended up going to this Man United game. I ended up travelling all the way up there and, sending you pictures and going, oh, it's lovely up here, Salford and all this bollocks, right? And we go there and we lost 4-0. And it was expected, wasn't it? Let's face it, right? It was expected. No, you never went, oh, sorry, Charlie. Oh, sorry about that, mate. Oh, sorry, I didn't expect that. Everybody, you almost went, it's your fault for going there. That was how it was.
Yeah,
That's how bad it was.
we
It
said
was
don't
that
go.
bad, and people forget that it was that bad. And then this pre-season, we've suddenly turned a little bit of a corner. It's a little bit of a corner. Look, let's not get excited too much, right?
Yeah, that's my point. Like
No,
you do have to remember who our opposition is, and I will say this.
yeah, but our opposition is people who were above us in the table. Fulham,
Okay.
Brighton,
So there's about
Newcastle.
10 teams.
These are all teams that we would have lost to last season, and we've beaten most of them and drawn with Newcastle. I don't think it's a bad thing.
All right, and I will say that you're right. You're right with Newcastle, but there's a lot more teams than Newcastle. There's still Spurs. There's still Man United. There's still Man City. There's still Arsenal. There's still Liverpool. There's still Aston Villa, who are looking really good. And I don't see why they should be discounted from this as well. There's still Brighton, who are actually the better team.
Beat Brighton. We beat Brighton.
Yeah, because they went down
we
to
beat
10
Fulham.
men. And they looked the better team still with 10 men.
We still beat them.
It's like what I said to you, Timber, in the chat after that game. I said I would rather win every game 4-3 than be losing 1-0 every week.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I would rather be, but isn't that the sign of a good? Is that the sign of a good team? Is when you're playing badly, you still manage to find a way to win, irrespective of like going down to 10 men. You still have to win the game. Do you know what I mean? Like we played a game. We played a game a couple of weeks back where JP got sent off for calling the referee. Well, I can't say what he called the referee, but got sent off. But we played with 10 men for 40 minutes in a friendly. It was horrible. Like the fact that we managed to keep and win the game, like it felt like a victory in itself.
All right, Tem, let me ask you this, right? You watched the game last night, yeah? How you banged on last week about how we shouldn't concede goals, sloppy goals, blah blah blah. We won last night 2-0. How was it?
Decent, and that's all I'll say on it. I'll say it was a decent performance, and we played okay. The first half we did play some good football. I will say that, and something I am really positive and happy about is the fact of how we attack. We attack very quick and very purposeful. That's something we've not seen at Chelsea for many, many years. A lot of times when we attacked, it was either down to Hazard creating a bit of space by himself, or maybe actually under Lampard, we did attack quite quick when we had young players during his first season, when he first came. But a lot of the times post that, and Sarri, of course, we've been a very slow build-up team, try to look for the perfect pass, create the perfect chance, and then we would try to score a goal. But that's something I would say that I do like about us now. We're a young, dynamic team. I think we do look for intricate passes, 1-2s, and looking for each other quite, in quite quick combinations. And even on the counter, we look dangerous as well, which I haven't seen from Chelsea for many, many years.
And I think it's something that I've mentioned previously in the podcast as well, is that we were starting to look like Arsenal of 10 years ago. But you know how Arsenal, they got the whole thing of like they're just trying to walk the ball in the net, trying to score the perfect goal. And that's exactly what we were like. We were like that last season. And it's like you mentioned, it kind of started with Sarri. It kind of in that area, trying to pass that sideways, trying to find the perfect pass. But last night, it looked different. Like I was like, okay, I'll put Chelsea on. Like it's preseason. I'll be completely honest. I don't watch a lot of preseason. I see the value in it. You get to see like players that you haven't seen before. I watched that, and it was so vastly different to what I was experiencing last year. Because last year was absolutely horrible. It was an effort to watch Chelsea play. It was an effort. Like
It's been like that for years. Let's face it. Let's not be honest about it. Let's be honest
let's
about
lie
it.
about
it. But the thing is, it's been that way for years. We play at home. We have this thing where we just go, we have this. It's like a game of chess almost. We have this thing where we just go one, and we wait for the queen to die almost. Until we score, until the king presses. Does that make sense? That's kind of the way that we've played for so many years. And the way that we're playing at the moment is really exciting. The way that we can transition very quickly from defense to attack. We've got these young players, Mudryk, Madueke, Nkunku, Jackson. Some of these players, they are so quick. They're so nimble. They're really good. I've got a really, really good feeling about this game against Liverpool. And that game is the crunch game. There is no doubt about that. That game is probably the biggest game this side of Christmas for us. I honestly believe that it's crunch.
I think it certainly sets a good tone to begin with. I think if we went there, is it home or is it away?
Home.
It's home.
So we need to win.
We probably could. Like in the grand scheme of things, we probably could. But we also, let's not discredit Liverpool in this scenario. Like the games that we've played with Liverpool in the last 4 games we played, is it all ended like 0-0s or something like that?
Yeah, but I just think we're better. I just think we've got that edge. Yeah. There's something about us at the moment, the way that we're playing. I just think we've got that edge. I don't know what it is, but I just got that feeling that we can do it. And maybe you used to call me Mr. Negative, but I'm Mr. Positive now. I really believe this. I really do.
Okay,
I can't believe this.
And can I just add on that? Well, you will die on that sword in that sense of
I'll die on whatever sword you give me. It doesn't bother me.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think we do this as football fans in the sense that we get carried, and it is something just about sports, I suppose. I'm going to contradict myself here, but it's a thing of you look at something and you get excited by it and you hold on to that. But the thing is, don't get carried away. We could go into that first game and lose 3-0, and then I'll be saying I told you so, and you'll be saying, "Oh,
Mr. Negative on Monday."
Yeah,
the Monday after, yeah. Oh, we were fucking shit.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I say, it's good to see the positives, but it's more it's better to look at what you can improve on. And like I say, we haven't really been tested enough, and that experience is where we're really going to be tested. A team like Liverpool know how to play a team like Chelsea, especially really inexperienced Chelsea. So it will be interesting to see how we fare.
But they're just as inexperienced as us. This is the perfect time to play them. I think so. I think they've lost the English mentality. They've lost Milner and Henderson. That's a big loss for like in terms of what I would say. I think it's the perfect time to play them at the moment. And I mean, I don't know what I was chatting to you this week, right, about how does pre-season actually matter? And I think it does. Last season,
Yeah.
we got turned over by Arsenal. I remember this in Vegas, I think it was 4-1, 4-0,
Yeah,
something
it
like
was
that.
horrible.
And
Yeah,
4-0.
what a season they went on to do, and what the hell did we end up doing? You know, there is something in it, and we've had a very good pre-season. We haven't lost a game. We've played okay most of the games. Jackson's been an absolute brilliant, and Kunku. There's been a lot of positives. And I just think going into that game, we've got to we've got to push that. That it's a huge game. A lot of people don't realise it's a huge game. If we can win that, God, the amount of confidence that we can get out of that, it could go on. And we've got a very easy run after that. We've got about 10 games where we're playing against
we can't.
lower
Okay,
league teams.
I've got to
Very
say
easy.
I think on the basis of last season, we cannot say we've got an easy run. But I don't want to jinx it. I really don't, because there was
Yeah.
times when we're in the podcast last year. Like we launched the podcast towards the end of the season, so obviously we think, oh, we can pick up points here, and we played Forest and drew. Do you know what I mean? So like, in
Yeah.
theory, it should be easier games. You are right, Charlie. The Liverpool game will set a precedent. It really will, and I think if we could get a
As long as
result
we
against
don't lose
Liverpool,
it. If we don't lose that one, I mean, I think if
Well,
we
this is
lose
what I'll
it, that'll be it. That will be a precedent. But I think if we can get a good draw, or if we can win it, Christ! I mean, I remember years ago. I remember when Abramovich took over. This is 2000. This is a long time ago, and we went to Anfield, and Hasselbank scored, and it was 2-1 against. And we never ever went to Anfield and won, right?
Yeah.
And we beat them, and I remember that. Veron scored the first goal. Owen scored a penalty, and Hasselbank scored. And I think that if we can beat the Liverpool that first game of the season, what a precedent that will
mm,
take. I really believe it. And I think they're there for the taking. I really do. I really do. I think we've got a good chance. They've got all sorts of problems. We're really in the mode, aren't we, at the moment? We've got a really good bunch of lads. Jackson seems to be scoring, and Kunku, all these players. There's something going on. If we can just get over that line,
mm.
that could spur us on massively.
And it's the
Be
new manager.
positive.
It's the new manager bounce as well. So we have to, we've got another manager. I mean, the fifth one in a year. So hopefully, fingers crossed that we get a result from this. I have to agree, like there is an opportunity to do so. But one thing I will say is, I think what feels different, and maybe this is me with rose-colored glasses on, and I'm sure Temba will tell me it might be probably that it is. But I have to think when we lost games last season, it definitely had the knock-on effect where it's like, oh, we're losing, we're losing, we're losing. If you lost a game this season, I don't think that the way the dressing room set out now with such these younger, impressionable, younger squad members, they're more likely to bounce back from them. They'll be easier for Pochettino to help them bounce back to whereas it's just another game. Whereas, these seasoned 28-year-olds, the petulant children like Romelu Lukaku, like those type of players, once that the head drops, they're more concerned about getting a nice little fee for when they make another move to a different club. But it'd be interesting. It's definitely one of those things going to be interesting to see. And I'm really, I for one, I mean, let's result aside, I think all three of us are looking forward to the start of the season. Am I right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
just
I
going to
will
be.
say about building that winning culture. It's something you just, I suppose, build on. Every result comes in, everyone's happy. Your main or best players get game time. You start
Mm,
to create an atmosphere where you feel like you can beat anybody. And I
yeah,
think that's the most important thing. You saw from when Pochettino first came in. He did a barbecue, I think, for all the players
yeah,
to come and just feel like Cobham's not a workplace, but more like a kind of like just home, come into their second home, so
mm,
they know that they're there every day or most days anyway. And they feel like a family instead of somewhere where you just go for 8 hours to see your co-workers and go home and just be done with your life. And that came out in the reports last season that a lot of players didn't actually talk with each other or,
yeah.
play as a group sort of thing. And I think once you do that in any sport where you all feel like you're connected, you start playing well, whether you like each other or not. But
Yeah.
winning is the most important thing. So we'll see.
I mean, if you think about it, take sport of it, take sport out of it, and take football away from it. Like if you're working in any in-work environment and you've got a team that you like around you, if one person's having an off day or having a bad day, you pick up the slack for that person.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And if you don't like your team and you don't like anybody you work with, it's not a good working environment. We have to remember,
Yeah.
yes, they're paid handsomely. You are right; they're paid fantastically. They've all got our dream jobs. But at the end of the day, to them, like none of them have worked in a call center, none of them work in a factory. Do you know what I mean? This is all they know. This is their job. So that's going to have that knock-on effect. But it's certainly something to look forward to in 11 days' time when we kick off against Liverpool. I think a key thing that we're going to do is keep swiftly moving on. Is we'll look at some of the other things that's going on in Chelsea this week. We've briefly touched upon it here now. Axel Disasi signed for Monaco for £38 million. Another centre back. We'll leave it with there. We'll probably go into a bit more detail once we've actually seen him in a Chelsea shirt. Be intriguing to do so. But then let's look at some of the more ludicrous transfer rumours, shall we say? So let's address
Messi,
it.
Ronaldo, and Mbappe as a.
Let's address it. I don't know about I don't know about you, but it seems like every season Chelsea at some point are linked to some ludicrous player in terms of stature, and I think every year we're linked to Neymar at some point, and it's just never going to happen. To me, this could happen, but I want to ask you a question, Charlie. Would you actually want Kylian Mbappe to sign for Chelsea?
No, because that's exactly the problem that we had last season. We had the problem that we had last season was too many egos in a squad, and too many people who thought they had a divine right to be in the first team, and that was the mess essentially that was created. Aubameyang was one of them. Lukaku years ago. We've had these players over the years. What's become apparent is that you can beat teams with these sort of players if you have a better team. It doesn't matter how good these opponents are. So I'll give you an example. Kylian Mbappe has never won a Champions League. He doesn't have the ability to drag PSG to win a Champions League. In fact, PSG are an embarrassment in that tournament. They keep failing one after time after another. Okay, and I believe that to win that sort of tournament at club level, you have to be a team. And I just think Kylian Mbappe, look, he's a really really good player. There's no doubt about that. I'd love to see him at Stamford Bridge. I think we all would, right? However,
You said no.
however, I don't think that it's worth him being on £500,000 a year and everybody else being on less than half of that.
I
If
tell
that
you
makes
what, if
sense.
we get him on £500,000 a year, we are doing great business. Half a million
I was
pound a year,
gonna
10
say,
grand a week.
yeah, yeah.
10
I'm
grand a
still
week
not
for
having him. I'm not having him. I
I
wouldn't
think
even
he's
have.
missed
I
it,
wouldn't
Tim.
even have him at
He's
100
missed
grand a
it.
year, 100 grand a week, 100
I
grand a
mean,
year, whatever. Doesn't bother
okay,
me.
Tem, I'll ask you that question. So, Kylian Mbappe, obviously, he's available. PSG have got to sell. They don't want to lose, have him go on a free. He wants to go to Real Madrid, but the option is there. He could, he went to Cobham for a little bit. Would you take Kylian Mbappe at Stamford Bridge, given what's currently being built at Cobham?
Yes. Who says no? Like, come on. He's the world's best player.
Oh, come on,
Come
really?
on, well, best world young's best player,
Best,
and don't say Haaland's better than him because he's not. But anyway, he's not. He's a better finisher, but he's not a better player than Mbappe. He is really not.
I won't say anything. I'll let you explain why you think Mbappe should come to
Mbappe
Chelsea.
is way better of a player. He has way more ability to his game than Haaland does. But Haaland is the most clinical player in world football. I agree with that. But I think Mbappe can play on the wing. He can play up front. You saw him drag France to a final and nearly won them the World Cup in December last year. Yeah, last
Yeah,
year. And that sort of player in the Premier League will only ever see it once. It'll be for a year loan, I believe. So why not go out for the Premier League? Why not get that on his CV? Why not get us to be Premier League champions, whether it costs us 500,000 per week or 700k a week? I think in the end, the commercial side of it will work itself out anyway. You'll see a flood of people buying Chelsea shirts and whatever, and maybe we get new sponsors and ads and all this. And from us being champions, we build upon that as well. So it's really not. I don't see how Chelsea. It's any type of loss for Chelsea, and obviously he gets his move maybe next year to Real Madrid or wherever, but he's a young player, so I don't see him failing anyway. As well,
I want to play devil's advocate on this. Why bother loaning him for a year?
I think it. I think
Does it not make sense to try and buy? If we do, say for example, right now the backroom staff they're currently working on getting Mbappe to Chelsea. Why bother bringing him in for a year? Why wouldn't we just try and buy him now?
I don't know if it's financially feasible. If they can afford that, yeah. If he wants,
they're going to have to reduce. PSG are going to have to reduce their fee, so they will reduce his fee because they want to get something for him. PSG are in the Mount situation that we are in right now.
Well, if it means signing him on a permanent, yeah, you make space for a world class player of that level. I think you'd be silly not to. You'd be absolutely silly not to. I know people look at what happened with Ronaldo, but I think that's a different situation compared to Mbappe.
No, Mbappe he's at the, how old is he? What, 24, 25?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a young man. He's at the peak of his career. There's no doubt that it will be a brilliant signing, but I just think we had all these problems last year with people who were on too much money, not enough money, all this sort of stuff, and we've just got to the point now where we've got that wage bill and we've gone like that a little bit, and now we're going to go like that. What's the point? I don't get it. We've spent all summer trying to sell players that are on too much money and trying to buy players, sensibly, if you like, and trying to, make a squad rather than, and a team rather than anything else. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to just go and buy Mbappe. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's got to be sensible. And look, Mbappe is a cracking player. I would love to see him at Chelsea. But at the same time, that half the problems last season was because of the differences between wages. It was so obvious, wasn't it? Mount, Havertz, all these, and Mount especially. He was looking above him at Sterling and Lukaku, right? And he was going, "Oh Christ, why am I not on that amount of money?" I mean, God, he wouldn't even be able to see the skies with what we're going to have to pay Mbappe.
Yeah,
this is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, with all due respect,
and what the hell's that all about?
Well, let me explain. So, with all due respect, you're right, but Kylian Mbappe and Lukaku and Ziyech and Pulisic, whoever, are completely different players. I think that's more Mason Mount and Chelsea who've fallen out, as we've seen publicly. Why are all these new players agreeing new deals? Why is Colwill agreeing a new deal? Why is Chalobah agreeing a new deal? Why is, everyone else who's agreed a new deal? It seems more on the players that didn't perform, that didn't agree new deals and were forced out. And do you think Mbappe is really going to be one of those? Koulibaly, 290k a week, he went straight away the next season. Yeah, we did make those mistakes, but I think you have to make an exception for a player like Kylian Mbappe. However, I do also understand your point. What is the point of doing all this, reducing everyone's wages and making everyone on a performance-based incentive, and then just completely breaking it again with Mbappe? So I do clearly understand your point on that one.
Tom, what do you reckon?
I think that's the longest I've not spoken on this podcast right then.
Go on,
literally right there. I was just sat there.
You can talk all you want,
watching
mate.
you. Okay. You both make salient points. You do. There are pluses and negatives to it. Mbappe is one of the best players in the world. He is. There's no denying it. I also think if he was to come in and play for Chelsea, and say, for example, we offered him 500,000 a week, just an example, Charlie.
Minimum.
Just an example. I think players like Mudryk, players that have signed those lower deals like Enzo Fernandez, wouldn't be as pissed off because it's Mbappe. Because I think he is at a different level.
For 1 year. Yeah, for 1 year. Yeah.
But there's no point signing him for 1 year. It doesn't make sense to sign him for 1 year. No, but the only way it makes sense is to bring him in. Because if it's a loan deal, we bring him on loan, we are kind of in the terms of the PSG deal anyway. So with the PSG might say, okay, you might have to pay 100% of his wages. They might say you pay 60% of his wages, which I don't know the whole grand scheme of things. But I also need to mention this when it comes to Kylian Mbappe, is it was reported like when he signed his contract extension to take him to 2025, he's got an extraordinary amount of power at PSG, more so for any player that's ever been given ever. You know, he's kind of like a pseudo director of football, like the decisions to decide on players who can come in. And also he signed it with an absolutely ginormous loyalty bonus that he gets each season of 40 million euros, which he gets activated in 2 hours time. He gets paid 40 million euros just for signing a contract, even though he wants to go out the door, and PSG want him out the door as well. He's got an enormous amount of power. He is not going to get that amount of power anywhere else. And what makes me worried is being given such a massive amount of power at such a young age could have a negative effect on his mentality if he were to sign for Chelsea, and it would have a negative effect on the players that currently play for Chelsea. It's a really big 50-50 situation, but I think we all agree we'd love to see Kylian Mbappe play for Chelsea, but I'd say yes, but not on the loan deal.
No,
It doesn't make sense on a loan deal. It doesn't make any sense to have him for a season.
I don't understand what the point.
To give him Mbappe number 7 for 1 year and then he fucks off to Real Madrid. It makes zero sense.
But I don't understand what the sense is for PSG to give him to us on the loan deal. What's the sense in that? I mean, they've got the opportunity now to make a load of money, right?
He'll be like Lukaku for us at PSG.
So just to get him off the wage bill, essentially.
Just to get him like off the wage bill, get him away from that squad so they can move on. Because what's the point of having a moody bloke around the changing rooms? He's not going to play and he's going to have a negative effect on the squad.
Yeah, and they're losing money, paying him wages.
But, I mean, he's rejected the deal, hasn't he, from Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
which is actually a positive, in my opinion. That he's actually said, you know what, because there's no way that price tag is anywhere near what anyone in Europe could afford. Nowhere near.
It isn't, and obviously financial fair play comes to that. Saudi Arabian League doesn't subscribe to that, so obviously they can afford to pay those wages. But I can't even remember my trail of thought on this one, like where I was going to go with it. But the thing with Mbappe, you have to say it again, Charlie. What were you saying? I had a point, and it's completely out of my head.
Well, I was saying, what was the point of loaning? What was the point of the loan? What's the point of the loan? What rather than buying? I don't understand that. Like at the end of the day, right? What was it? 250 million quid, let's say, for example. Yeah, that Saudi Arabia have offered. Yeah, and he's gone. Yeah, okay. We've looked at the contracts, and he's gone. Nah, not enough. Like not happy with that. Well, probably not happy with that. Not happy with the league. Let's put it that way, right? I want to play in Europe. Okay. Now let's see who else has got that sort of money. Now look, no one in Europe has got 250 million quid apart from PSG. Let's be honest, right? And Man City. Those are the two clubs that have got that sort of money floating around.
That would be so cruel if Man City signed Kylian Mbappe.
There's no way. I don't think that Chelsea will. I don't think that we would pay any more than £100 million for Kylian Mbappe. I just don't. I don't see why we would.
Do you know what? I think
especially
PSG would accept that. I think they would.
Yeah. Well, they should. Yeah.
And you talking about that has reminded me of what I was going to say. Like, yes, it is a good thing that Kylian Mbappe is, rejected the Saudi league, but it's also because the reason being is he wants to play for Real Madrid. So how do you convince a player that's not in it for the money in this scenario, who's been exposed to a lot of power, to come play for Chelsea when actually the only club he actually really wants to play for is Real Madrid?
Yeah, but you can say all that all you want. But having said that, Real Madrid have already spent, what is it, £105 million on Jude Bellingham. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's done. How many players have they offloaded? I can't think of any big players for money. Let alone free. A few free transfers.
My research.
Yeah, but I don't think they've invested a lot of money. So I don't think they're in a position to buy him. I just don't think they are with FFP and everything else. I just don't think they're in a position to buy him. And I don't think they were expecting him to be available in this window. They've always had it in their head that he was going to play for Real Madrid. Everybody knows that one day Kylian Mbappe will play for Real Madrid. Everyone knows that, right?
So,
It's not a
Charlie,
secret.
who wouldn't have money for FFP? Who did you mention?
Real Madrid.
Oh, Real Madrid. Right. Okay. Yeah.
I do want to
Anything?
mention though, I want to play. When you look at the players that have left, they've all been on astronomical wages. So those wages are out there now. So Karim Benzema, obviously he's gone. Eden Hazard, astronomical wages, he's gone. You know, I don't know what economic levers they can pull in Spain that Barcelona seems to find down the back of the sofa. They might pull out an economic lever. You never know, especially when it comes to La Liga football. But you are right. They've not made any money if outbounding at all. Like nothing's come out. They've all gone on the freeze or loans or left the club, and it's an interesting situation. And I think we could talk for a long time about Kylian Mbappe. I mean, if you look at just by all means, people that are watching us now, like let us know in the comments. Do you think that seeing Kylian Mbappe in the Premier League or for Chelsea is a good move? Or would you want to see them at your club? Like, just say, like I think Jordan here. So, I'd love to see him in the Premier League for anyone, even as an Arsenal fan. Yeah, I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him snap Kai Havertz's legs. I'm only joking. I'm not joking. He's dead to me. Anyway, we don't.
Calm down, right?
Oh, and can I just add on that point? What I was looking at Mbappe as a permanent. So Chelsea are exploring a player cash swap deal. Obviously,
Yes.
notoriously.
You are right. So I read something similar to that. So potentially with players such as Hakim Ziyech, Romelu Lukaku, there was another player that was on offer as well, potentially. So we do still have a bit of deadwood. I don't think PSG is going to go in for Gallagher.
Yeah.
Something
Something
tells me he's not glamorous enough. I don't think. But Lukaku's got that name value, as shocking as he is. And yeah, maybe, who knows? But at the end of the day, nothing's concrete. But you never know. You never know. He's not going to move before he gets that 40 million. If it was me in his situation, I'm not going to move before I get 40 million euros. So. You never know. He could just sit on the bench. He might sit on the bench for a year. Who knows? I think sod it. I'll take a year off. Whatever.
I was reading the papers today though about Harry Kane, and he's going Munich and all this sort of stuff. I mean, that's interesting as well. I mean, it's just another striker gone, if you like, from the pack. I mean, what do you reckon about that?
I mean, this is the We Talk Chelsea podcast, and I'm sure the We Talk Spurs podcast are waxing lyrical about Harry Kane and how they can probably go in for Kylian Mbappe now that the stadium's paid off. But I mean, when it comes to Harry Kane, yeah, it's terrible because I would like to see him at Chelsea, but I don't think that was ever going to happen. But I digress. And let's talk about some of the other rumored players potentially coming into Chelsea. The situation we want to talk about is the goalkeeping situation. It's looking like that Kepa Arrizabalaga is probably going to be the number one goalkeeper going into next season. But strong links currently now being suggested that Chelsea might be in for Robert Sanchez from Brighton to act as a not as a number two, but to somebody pushing for the number one position. We need a second goalkeeper, let's face it. But is Robert Sanchez the person that we need to bring in, Temba? Do you feel like he's somebody that's going to push or oust Kepa completely? Does he have the capability to oust Kepa completely? I'm not saying Kepa's incredible, but maybe.
This is the thing. I mentioned this before. I think it's Kepa who's going to do it to himself. I think he is ultimately, in a sense, the leader of where he either stays as a number one or number two, because how bad was he in 2019 when we had to play Caballero for the last remaining 5-10 games or whatever it was, when he just was so awful, and he's been replaced by Mendy previously as well. So it really depends how well can he bounce back from or bounce on from last season, and keep his performances and make less errors, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to see. I just don't. Charlie, you mentioned something earlier last week. You feel like in this situation, when it comes to having a number two, I think it's more beneficial to have an older head. I think you mentioned. Do you think Robert Sanchez is somebody not the right person to bring in? Do you think you need to bring in somebody older that's going to, guide him, coach him, and gas him up, make him feel like he's the best goalie in the world. And I think you mentioned a player that's recently been let go by a big club in the Premier League that could potentially push him for a number 2, who was happy to act as a number 2 at that club. So by all means, I'll let you say the
Well,
name.
look, I'll be honest with you. I think that we haven't found the perfect number one, have we? Let's face
Yeah.
it, right? The perfect number one hasn't come around. We're satisfied with Kepa. I would say satisfied is the word.
I'm satisfied with my
Tim,
Honda.
you're shaking your head all you want, right?
Yeah, but I'm
we're
satisfied with my
satisfied.
Honda, but I want a
Okay,
Mercedes.
but yeah, okay. But the thing is, right? You need that number 2 because you never know. And I remember, and this is I'm going to tell you a story now. 1997, when
Here we go. Back to
Strapping
okay,
in.
look,
Strapping
all
in.
right, it's only going to be a 1 minute thing, but Dimitri Karin was our number 1, okay, and Kevin Hitchcock was our number 2, and both of them got injured, and we ended up with the FA Cup final in 1997 with Frode Grodås from Norway, but he was fantastic, you know. But the thing is, if Frode Grodås ever thought that he was going to win the FA Cup with Chelsea, God, I mean, he was probably from a little igloo, you know, in Norway. This guy, right? Who knows?
Who's
Right?
in Norway, eh?
That was where he's from, Frode Grodås. That was his name. But the point I'm trying to
But
make is
about igloos in Norway. But carry
Igloos
on.
in Norway.
you know, well, is it a hut or whatever it was, you know? But the point I'm trying to make is you need that second player, you need that second goalkeeper, and most of the best goalkeepers that we've had who've done that job is Mark Schwarzer, Neil Sullivan, these sort of guys, old school kind of guys, 35 plus years old. They're kind of a come by coach, I would call them, if you like. You know, they can coach these keepers because look, being a goalkeeper, it's not that complicated. Let's face it. Yeah, most of it's about confidence. Most of it's about confidence, and it's about spreading your legs and things like that, right? And these old guys can teach these young guys how to do it. And Kepa, he's got the ability, but the confidence is the lack. And look, let's face something, right? Going into this season, are you more confident with Kepa than you were last season with Kepa and Mendy behind him? Bearing in mind, we haven't got Mendy anymore. Yeah. So we have that is the biggest challenge at the moment. It's the goalkeeper.
Say the name.
There's no name. I don't know a name.
Who'd you bring as a number 2?
De Gea. I would bring De Gea for 1 year. And I know you're going to laugh.
Yeah, I think it's
1 year.
Big problem.
Doesn't matter. 1 year.
Yeah, but how would you bring him
experience.
in? How would you bring him in? He's on 300. He was on 300k a week. He's surely going to want.
Kepa's on a lot of money, right? I guarantee that you could pay De Gea the same amount as Kepa, and he.
But is that too much for a number 2? Is that too much for a number 2? But also at the same time, I want to play. David
come by coach. If that makes sense.
Yeah, David De Gea was going to sign a contract for a lot less money to stay at Manchester United. A lot. And the reason why he didn't
what was that figure?
It was still 3 figures. It was still 3 figures.
How do you know?
I'm on the board.
3 figures, but like I say, is it less than 150k a week? And the next thing is what can a second keeper bring that Kepa doesn't have? I think that's the main important thing. We see Kepa, he's very, very, very average at distributing the ball. He's very, very average at making good saves. And he does the basic things good, which I will give him. He does the basic things good. But the problem is he doesn't excel really in anything. That's my issue. When you need a keeper to make you 1 or 2 crucial saves, I don't think he's that guy. He's that guy who you think, could he have done better at that goal?
I agree. Every single goal he lets in. Yeah.
And it's something I think we will need next season. I know people harp on about last season, how well we played defensively, but with an inexperienced midfield, we will face a lot more shots and chances coming our way because of how fast we play. It is going to have a knock-on effect. If your midfield can't control the game, their midfield will control the game, and if their midfield controls the game, the more chances they create. And we can be dynamic and explosive on the counter attack, but at the same time, how good are you going to be defensively? That's when you'll need to rely on your keeper. And if your keeper can't keep out the most basic shots or long shots, because let's face it, again, teams do take long shots against us, and especially Kepa, because they know, it's got a high chance of going in. It has got a high chance of going in, and there are not many midfields in in the Premier League nowadays who can't shoot or put a good shot on target, and it is a real concern of mine because I look at other keepers, even Nick Pope, who we're talking about, Emi Martinez, Edison, Allison.
Robert Sanchez.
I'm not quite sure about the new Spurs keeper. I'm still yet to see about him. Even Ramsdale, they signed him for 20, 25 million. Everyone was laughing at Arsenal a few years ago, and look at him now. And, we sort of kept with Kepa for the last 5-6 years, and it's just been a failed experiment. He's never really been good enough to be our number one. And it's something I think if you can sort it out this season, that would be perfect because it puts us up there with our competitors. You see Man United, they've got rid of De Gea now. They don't see it, and he's even better than Kepa. So our bar in that sense is really low at the moment. And I think our number two will quickly become our number one in the same situation as Mendy was a few years ago, where they are battling it out. Maybe he's not as good as Mendy was in that Champions League run, but I don't see Kepa holding his position for the rest of the season, is my point of view.
I'll be honest with you, right? My opinion is, what we're going to do this season, yeah? We're going to, maximum, top 5, top 6, top 7, something like that, okay? And Kepa's probably about as good as you can get. There's nobody on the market at the moment who's like there, that you can just go £100 million and you just go, right, like Allison.
I'm gonna have to disagree.
Kind of guy.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna have to disagree in that scenario because there are players out there. You might just have to go older. So you might have to look at Young Oblak. You might have to look at players potentially like David Raya from Brentford, even though he is linked to Arsenal. David Raya currently at the moment. So if they go for David Raya and Arsenal, that means Aaron Ramsdale might be looking for a number one position because he might not want to play a number two position to a player. So Aaron Ramsdale, is that a player potentially you could see him making the jump? Would you want to play like that?
It's not going to happen, is it? And that's the thing.
It may. It's crazy.
I didn't think Havertz was going to join Arsenal this summer.
Yeah, Ashley Cole joined Chelsea when he was pretty much one of their best players.
I mean, he will be very pissed off. I'll agree with that if they buy Raya, which is likely. But I don't think he's going to sign for Chelsea. I just don't think he will.
No, give us a viable reason. That's the point.
Well, because he just won't. It's like do you think Mo Salah's going to sign for Brentford? It's that kind of question.
That's not the same. That's not the same.
No, but the point that I'm trying to make, I just can't see it. There's certain things like De Gea, for example, as a free agent, I can see us picking him up at the end of the transfer window and just nicking him. We just nick him and we go, right, okay, you're second goalkeeper and your Kepa's lean on De Gea. You speak the same language, lean on him, bang. And he's going to learn a lot from him. He's going to obviously learn a lot of faults from him as well because he wasn't the perfect keeper, let's face it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that he's there for the taking. Ramsdale, I don't think he is. They only signed him last year.
Yeah, and they've signed another keeper?
Not yet.
They're going.
2 years ago, they signed Ramsdale. But yeah.
But you remember when Petr Cech was number 2 to Courtois? It happens.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's not really a situation. You can't have two number ones. It never works. One keeper will always want to lead. You saw with Man United, Dean Henderson and De Gea. They tried to do the same thing. That ended up. You saw it with Courtois and Petr Cech, like you said. The only one I could really remember happening was Kudicini and Petr Cech, where Kudicini effectively became a number 2 because Petr Cech was so good. And
do you know who I would say? You know that Liverpool, is he still available at Kelleher? He's good. I think he's very good.
As a number 2, I think he'd be all right, but it's just whether he wants to go and be a number 2 at another club.
I think he'll be a number 1. I think from what I've seen of him, and bearing in mind he's played against us, and every time he's kept us out. He's a very, very good goalkeeper, that one.
Yeah, he really is. Well, chaps, we're coming up to that 1 hour mark. You know, there's a lot to speak about this week. Turns out Kylian Mbappe, a Chelsea player who isn't even a Chelsea player, got the most airtime. But I appreciate you both for joining me. We will appreciate you for watching us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you are watching us on TKS Team, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next week at 9:30, chaps. We shall see you next week.